How's it going? Today we're going to talk about some scary stuff. Hope you have new pants on, because you're about to destroy them with these stories, and these towns as well. Some cities have charm, great history, and attractions as well. Others have a bunch of haunted houses, cemeteries, legends of ghosts, vampires, gruesome murders, and even werewolves. Do you want to know if you live in one of the most haunted cities in the world, or if you should even rebook your holiday vacation with Airbnb? Perhaps yourself with a crucifix may be needed, or a pentagram, and explore the 10 most haunted cities in the world. Let me know in the comments, what do you think of ghosts? Do you live in a haunted house? I once lived in a haunted place, and it's on this list actually. First up, Estates Park, Colorado seems like nothing special at first sight, but if you ever plan to visit, don't stay in one of the city's countless haunted hotels. Apart from the Ball Bay Inn, which is said to house the ghosts of its founders, Estates Park's most famous haunted hotel is the Stanley Hotel, sort of like Stanley Kubrick, who made a popular movie. A beautiful hotel with a view of the Rocky Mountains, it helped to inspire Stephen King's novel, The Shining. When King visited the hotel, he reported seeing ghosts, or ghostly children, and partially in the ballroom featuring otherworldly guests. The Stanley was founded in 1909 and was Colorado's first hotel with electricity. During a thunderstorm in 1911, the lights went out. How creepy is that? And a chambermaid was sent to light the gas lights. A gas leak caused a massive explosion when she stepped into room 217. The woman survived and continued to work at the Stanley until her death. She is now said to haunt the hotel rooms. She reportedly folds visitors' clothing and stacks them away. Out of all the ghosts on this list, I think that would be the most helpful ghost. Do you leave a tip for that person? I'm not quite sure. Anyway. The city of Prague is often considered to be one of the most beautiful in Europe. Apart from beautiful architecture and a rich history, Prague also has its own collection of legends and ghosts. One of Prague's most famous ghosts is the Mad Barber. Not quite angry, or a little angry. Also condemned to walk the streets at night, he lost his wife and went mad with grief. He slashed at passerbys with his razor and was beaten to death by soldiers. The begging skeleton, one of Prague's friendliest ghosts, tries to beg money from drunks. He was said to have been a beautiful, tall, but very poor young man. Not sure if he was skinny as bones, but a medical professor asked him if he would sell his skeleton. The young man agreed, but died shortly after in a bar fight. His skeleton still roams the streets of Prague, trying to collect enough money to finally buy himself free. How unfortunately sad and depressing that is. If you were a ghost, would you want to be a skeleton? Would you want to have no flesh? Or would you want to be fully fleshed? And would you want to be clothed? You don't see a lot of streaking ghosts, unfortunately. Or thankfully, actually. Dublin is another old city in which mysteries and spooky places aboard. Not only in Conley Station, allegedly haunted by a poltergeist. Ooh, fun. But Dublin has the famous Hellfire Club as well. Originally designed as a hunting lodge for the rich, rumors of black masses and animal sacrifices soon spread. The skeleton of a dwarf was also discovered in a shallow grave, just outside the club. Kavanagh's Pub, aka Grave Diggers, very appropriate, just next to Glavinance Cemetery, is visited by the ghost of an old gentleman in tweed, who takes his drinks at the bar and then vanishes, without leaving a tip, that bastard. He is said to be a former grave digger. In the crypt of St. Mission's Church, bodies have been preserved for over 800 years. Quite a long time. Coffins are stacked all over the place, and the limbs of the dead stand in weird angles. Visitors often report whispers, voices, and cold hands grabbing them. Savannah has been called the city built upon its dead. Houses and squares have been built over mass graves from the Revolutionary War. It's not surprising then that the city was countless haunted locations. The Locust Theater opened in 1921, closed in 1976 after showing The Exorcist, and reopened in 2001. During the restoration, unexplainable occurrences were noted by the workers. Applause would be heard, tools disappeared. The Colonial Park Cemetery opened in 1750. It is said to be a regular site of voodoo rituals. Visiting mourners found revenants from the ceremonies before the cemetery began being closed at night. Now, like I said before, I did live in a haunted place when I was in Savannah. There's a little girl who I saw a few times and heard her quite more often while I was there visiting for school for 2 years in Savannah. Not so visiting, but going to school there. Anyway, so I saw her one night, quite creepy. She had an old-fashioned 1800s dress, no face, and she ran off. And then I had a little talk with her after that scary occurrence, which was probably the most frightened I've ever been. And then I told her I live there as well. I mean her no harm. And she can play at the night while I close all the doors and leave her out in the hallway while she can play. And there's a guest bedroom as well, which she could play in there as well. So usually I heard her playing bouncy ball in the hallway, on the stairs, and even in the other room, but she never again went into my room, or I never saw her as well. Quite sweet kid. The Athens Lunatic Asylum was built in 1874 and was also known as the Ridges. Patients were treated with ice water baths, electric shocks, and lobotomies. In addition to the mentally ill, the facility housed elderly and rebellious teenagers. The asylum also featured 2 haunted cemeteries. One of the cemetery's headstones form a circle, which was allegedly used by witches to perform their rites, or rituals. One of the ghosts said to haunt the Ridges is Margaret Schilling, a patient who mysteriously disappeared in 1978. Her body was found a month later. The outline where she lay was stained into the ground. After it was removed, Margaret's shape returned over and over again. If you think a haunted asylum and 2 haunted cemeteries are enough to make Athens, Ohio, a haunted city, you are mistaken. Of course you are. Unlike Greece, Athens, Ohio is quite miraculous. The town's cemetery is from a pentagram. The university is said to be built on top of a Native American burial ground, and ghost towns like Mount Nebo are everywhere. Wonderful place to live. Rome has many ghost stories, and it's no wonder why. The whole city's sites are catacombs, and many gruesome things have taken place there, like the execution of Beatrice Cenci. Beatrice was 20 years old when she was imprisoned in Castel St. Angelo for killing her abusive husband and later executed. She definitely got the wrong end of the stick. It is said that her ghost walks St. Angelo Bridge every year on September 11th with her head under her arm. There are many scary places in Rome to visit, but none of them are creepier than the museum and crypt of the Capuchins. The skeleton of more than 400 monks decorate the crypt. Chandeliers are made out of leg and arm bones. Skulls are embedded in the walls. A sign also reads, "What you are, we once were. What we are, you will become." True poetry. Paris is famous for its catacombs and love, but it is also many more creepy places within it. In La Musée des Vampires, you can visit the world's only real vampire hunter and his findings. Or you can venture to Rue Chanaz to visit the ghost of the man who was the inspiration for Sweeney Todd. He was a local barber who killed his victims, boiled their bodies, and finally severed their meat in patties. The Eiffel Tower is said to contain the ghost of a young girl who had planned to break up with her boyfriend the same night he intended to propose to her. He did so on top of the tower, and she declined. He threatened to push her from the tower, but she didn't believe him and laughed. So he pushed her. Allegedly, her laughter can be heard, and her ghostly figure can be seen from time to time again. Unfortunately, I don't think she had wings, so in the afterlife, I mean, because otherwise her ghost would be gone by now. The capital of Scotland has a very long and gruesome history. Look no further than Southbridge Vaults. Built in the 18th century, the vaults were meant to house taverns and cobblers, but after a flood killed many poor souls in 1975, they were abandoned. The vaults remained forgotten until homelessness became a crime punishable by death. The poor went into the vaults, and illegal business soon spread as well, including several brothels. The infamous body snatchers Burke and Herr reportedly hunted their victims in the vaults and sold their corpses to medical schools. Great business. Paranormal activity has become a nearly day-to-day occurrence in Edinburgh Castle. The staff has become accustomed to hearing music, footsteps, and voices. Actually curious what type of music they have, if they play Eminem or classical. Another ghostly place in Graffiche's Kirkland. Many famous people have been laid to rest here. Part of the cemetery is supposedly haunted by a poltergeist. Visitors strolling around the cemetery are left with bruises, scratches, and cuts. Hopefully no enigmas with devil signs or something, just cuts. London has a reputation of being one of the most haunted capitals in the world and features countless ghost stories. For example, in 1907, a man was walking along the London Wall when a hand suddenly stretched out of the wall and blocked his passage. Shocked, he turned away for a few seconds. When he dared to look again, he saw a man in dark clothing who walked directly into the wall and disappeared. Another prominent ghost in the Highgate Vampire. The Highgate Cemetery was abandoned in the 1960s and left to decay. In its time, it was the most fashionable place to be buried, and Victorian families tried to outdo one another with elaborate gravestones and crypts. Creative bunch they were. Too bad they didn't have AI crypt keepers back then. Several reports of ghostly encounters exist, many of them concerning the Highgate Vampire. How would you react if you were walking down a dark street along the edge of the cemetery and glimpsed a dark, tall shape with gleaming red eyes behind the gates? Enough people reported such an encounter that a vampire hunt occurred in the 1970s. It wasn't successful, unfortunately. New Orleans is one of the most haunted cities in the world, of course, with their bougie, fun jazz and so forth. Founded in 1718, it has been seen more than a little bloodshed. It's probably the only place in the world where allegedly haunted houses is actually more expensive than a normal one. New Orleans is the city of voodoo, and voodoo queen Mary Laveau rests in St. Louis Cemetery, the most haunted cemetery in the world. She is said to wander the cemetery of St. John's Eve, June 23rd. Phantom of yellow fever victims and fallen Civil War soldiers have been reportedly countless times at the cemetery. Not sure if it's the north or south, but either way, it's quite scary to see a ghost soldier. The house of Madame Delphine Lalaurie is a famous haunted mansion in the French Quarter. After a fire destroyed parts of the house, a torture chamber was discovered in the attic. Madame Lalaurie tortured slaves, cut them up, opened alive, experimented on them, and removed body parts. Allegedly, the ghosts of the slaves still haunt the mansion, and, of course, that's why that mansion was burnt. Anyway, what do you think of ghosts? And have you ever encountered a ghost? Let me know, and others know, in the comments below. Love to see the scariest stories that you come across. I will, of course, heart them and maybe get a top of the comments. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a great one. Bye.